Hey everyone, welcome back for another deep dive. Ever feel like you're never quite sure what companies are actually looking for when it comes to skills for a job?
Yeah, it can feel like a guessing game sometimes.
Totally. So today, we're going to try to crack the code on that.
It sounds like a plan.
We're diving deep into chapter9.pdf, which is all about, get this, work analysis.
Work analysis!
I know. Sounds about as thrilling as watching paint dry, right?
It doesn't exactly scream exciting podcast material.
Right. But trust me on this one, this isn't your grandma's job description.
Oh, I'm intrigued. How so?
It's way more interesting than it sounds, I promise. Think of it this way. Work analysis is like having a secret cheat sheet, but for building a high-performing team.
Oh, okay, I like where this is going.
It's all about figuring out who you need on your team, what skills they need to have, even how to help them excel.
So it's not just about those, super formal job descriptions that we've all come across.
The ones that feel like they were written in a foreign language.
Right.
Yeah, no, it's definitely that, but it's also so much more.
Like what?
It's really the foundation for almost everything HR does, like hiring, training, even designing, safer and more efficient work processes.
Oh, wow, I never really thought of it that way. It's kind of like if HR is building a house, work analysis is the blueprint.
Exactly. You can't build a solid structure if you don't understand the plans, the materials, even just the land you're building on.
Right. It's all about that groundwork.
Yeah, it's about laying that groundwork for success. But with all this talk about the future of work and AI changing everything,
Which is everywhere you turn these days.
I know, right? It makes you think the whole idea of a job might be on its way out.
Yeah, I can see why you think that.
So are the robots taking over?
Well, not quite. The thing is, the way we work is definitely evolving. There's no arguing that. But the concept of a job, at least within larger organizations, still crucial.
So they still need those clearly defined roles and responsibilities to actually function.
Exactly. Companies still need that structure. But what's really fascinating is how technology is actually making things more complex.
More complex. How so?
Well, we're seeing a huge shift towards jobs that require things like cognitive skills, critical thinking, being able to adapt quickly.
Yeah.
And these things, they're much harder to define than, say, just being able to type a certain number of words per minute.
Yeah, it's like, can you figure out how to solve a problem that doesn't even exist yet?
Exactly. And that actually brings us to a key shift in how we even approach work analysis these days.
Oh.
See, traditionally, it was all about what gets done. Just a simple list of tasks.
Yeah.
Today, it's much more about the who. So like the worker's attributes, knowledge, skills, abilities,
Okay.
and even get this, their personality.
Personality. So you're saying you can predict job success based on someone's personality?
Well, it's a bit of a gray area, but, more and more companies are saying yes,
Yeah.
and they're actually using it to try to find the right people for the job.
Wow. So now it's not just about skills, it's about how we actually approach work and interact with others.
Now you're getting it.
Yeah.
And it's not about, trying to put people into boxes.
Right.
It's more about trying to understand how our different personality traits might influence our strengths and weaknesses in a certain job or work environment.
I mean, you hear people say all the time, yeah, they have the skills, but they're just not a good fit for the team. So this is kind of like uncovering the hidden factors that make people click or not click.
Precisely. And it's not about finding that like perfect match because, let's be honest, that doesn't really exist.
Right.
It's more about recognizing that personality, it's fluid. It can change over time, especially as we have new experiences and develop our skills.
So how do they even do this personality analysis? Is this like those, cheesy online quizzes we used to take?
It's a little more nuanced than that. They often use tools that measure what's called the Big Five personality traits, which are things like openness, conscientiousness, extroversion, agreeableness, and neuroticism.
Right. Big words. So it's like a scientific approach to understanding your personality strengths and weaknesses.
Exactly. It takes the guesswork out of it, or at least tries to.
It's not just a gut feeling anymore.
Well, it's about using data to back up those gut feelings. And like we were saying, understanding how those personality traits can play out on the job.
So it's not like, you're too introverted, we're not hiring you.
No, not at all. It's more like, okay, if this role requires a lot of public speaking, we might want to consider someone who's naturally more extroverted.
Right. It makes sense. But what about those critical incidents we talked about before? How do those fit in?
Oh, those are like the real world stories that help us understand how these personality traits actually show up in different situations.
So give me an example.
Sure. Think about it like this. We get a glimpse into how someone handles pressure, how they navigate conflict, how they collaborate with others on a team, all by looking at those specific situations.
So, tell me about a time you had to work under a tight deadline, or, what happened the last time you had a disagreement with a coworker?
Exactly. Those stories can be incredibly valuable for really understanding what makes someone tick.
So we've explored the what of work analysis, the who, even the why. Now let's talk about how. How do companies actually gather all this information?
Well, think of it like a detective's toolkit. We've got observations where you're actually watching how the job's done firsthand.
Okay.
We've got interviews where you're picking the brains of, the people who know the job best.
Got it.
And we've got questionnaires, which can be really helpful to get a broader perspective from a larger group of employees.
And then there are the critical incident analyses, right? Which are like those real life case studies of great and not so great job performance.
Exactly. It's about gathering all those different pieces of the puzzle.
Yeah.
And just like a detective chooses the right tool for the job, each of these methods has its own strengths and weaknesses.
So how do you know which method is best for a given situation?
It really depends. It depends on the specific job and what you're hoping to learn from the analysis. Sometimes a combination of methods is best to get a more well-rounded view.
Makes sense. Now, Chapter9.pdf also mentions some specific tools like the Position Analysis Questionnaire, or PQ, and the Fleischman Job Analysis Survey, which is FJAS. What are those all about?
Oh yeah, those are like classic tools for breaking down jobs into their core
The
components.
core components, okay?
So imagine with a PAQ, it's like this detailed survey, but for jobs.
Okay.
And it helps organizations really pinpoint the exact skills
Yeah.
that are needed for a job. And then you have the FJAS, and that one focuses more on the abilities that are required to perform those skills.
So it's getting really granular with it.
Yeah, exactly. They're really trying to break it down. And that level of detail, it can be incredibly helpful, especially when you're talking about complex jobs.
Yeah, that makes sense. But what about jobs that are constantly changing? I'm thinking tech, software development, that kind of thing. It seems like any analysis you do today might be outdated tomorrow.
Oh, I'm so glad you brought that up. That's a really great point. And it brings us to the exciting world of strategic work analysis, or SWA.
Strategic work analysis. That sounds intense.
It's a little bit more forward thinking.
Mhm.
Instead of just analyzing existing jobs, SWA is all about anticipating what skills we're going to need for jobs that haven't even been invented yet.
Whoa. Okay, so how do you even do that? Predict the future.
Well, you have to look at trends, think about emerging technologies, consider global shifts. All those things give us clues about what the future of work might look like. Imagine trying to define the job of a, I don't know, virtual reality experience designer 10 years ago, or a quantum computing ethicist.
Right, those jobs didn't even exist.
Exactly, but now they're in high demand.
So this SWA, it's about future-proofing your workforce.
Exactly, being proactive, not reactive.
I like it. And this is where those competency models come in, right? Those broader frameworks.
Yes, they define the core skills and traits that are valued across, the whole entire organization.
Right.
So those competency models can really help organizations align their talent with their long-term strategies. They're like providing a common language for everyone to be able to talk about skills and development, which can be super powerful.
It's like having a roadmap for success, not just for individual jobs, but for the whole company.
Exactly. It's about making sure everyone's moving in the same direction
Yeah.
and that they understand what it takes to succeed. We're all on the same page.
This has been really eye-opening. We've covered so much. I feel like we just went from the basics of work analysis to the future with SWA and competency models.
Well, it is a fascinating field. And just like work itself, it's constantly evolving.
It is. And it's something we can all benefit from understanding better, right?
Absolutely.
So the next time you're applying for a job, maybe thinking about your career path, or even just trying to wrap your head around this crazy world of work, remember the power of work analysis. Because it's not just about job descriptions, it's about unlocking potential for individuals, for organizations, for everybody.
Couldn't have said it better myself. It's about creating a more fulfilling, more successful future of work. For everyone.
Absolutely. Thanks for taking this deep dive with us. Until next time, keep exploring, keep learning, and keep asking, what's next?
It's kind of like, imagine if you could pinpoint the secret sauce of those top performers
Okay, yeah.
in your field, like what makes them so good at what they do.
I'm listening.
That's what companies are trying to do with this personality-based job analysis.
PBJA, right.
Yep. PBJA.
Mm.
It's all about understanding how those personality traits can actually affect how well someone does in a particular job.
So, like, some jobs you really have to be a people person, right?
Yeah.
And some, it's more about being heads down in your work.
Exactly. Think about it. Some jobs need a ton of collaboration, and others need you to be able to hunker down and work independently.
So it's not just about skills anymore. It's about how we approach the work and how we interact with the people around us.
Now you're getting it. It's not about putting people into boxes or anything like that. It's more about, I think, recognizing how our personality traits, our natural tendencies influence how we perform best.
This is pretty fascinating when you think about it.
Yeah.
How many times have you heard someone say, oh, they have the skills, but they're just not a good fit for our team?
All the time.
So this is kind of like we're on this hunt to uncover what actually makes people click or not click in a workplace.
Right. And it's not about, like I said, finding that one perfect match because
Because who's perfect?
Exactly. And it's more about recognizing that personality, it's not fixed. It can change over time, right?
Yeah.
Especially as we, gain new experiences, we develop our skills, we learn and grow as people.
So how do companies actually go about doing this whole personality analysis thing?
Well,
Is it like those, those cheesy online quizzes like, what kind of sandwich are you?
well, it's a little more, I guess you could say nuanced than that.
Good.
They often use these tools that measure what they call the Big Five personality traits.
So
Openness, conscientiousness, extroversion, agreeableness, and eroticism.
So those are like the big 5 categories.
Exactly. Think of it like a more scientific way to look at your strengths and weaknesses, but through the lens of personality.
Okay, so we're moving away from gut feeling and towards something a little more,
Data-driven.
yes, data-driven. There it is.
Exactly. So it's not just about gut feeling anymore. It's about using data to actually support those gut feelings. And like we were saying before, understanding how all these different personality traits, they actually play out in the workplace.
Right, so it's not, you're too introverted, you can't work here.
No, it's not about excluding anyone.
Okay.
It's more about saying, okay, this is what the role requires, and these traits might be a really good fit for that.
So it's about finding the right fit for the job and the team.
Exactly. And that can actually lead to better performance and more satisfied employees in the long run.
Makes sense. Now, remember those critical incidents we were talking about earlier?
Oh, yeah. How those personality traits actually show up at work in those real-life situations.
Yes. How do those fit into this whole big picture?
Those are like the juicy stories that really help us connect the dots.
Give me an example.
Sure. It's like getting a behind-the-scenes look at how someone handles the pressure of a big deadline, or how they navigate a disagreement with a coworker, or even how they celebrate a team win.
So it's about understanding the why behind the what.
Exactly. Those stories paint a picture. They give us a glimpse into a person's motivations, their values, their working style.
It's like getting the full story instead of just reading the headline.
Right. And that's what helps us really understand what makes someone tick, what makes them successful in a particular role or work environment.
So we've got the what of work analysis, the who, the why. Now let's dig into the how. How are companies actually getting all this information? This is where it gets really interesting.
It does. It's like being a detective, and we've got this whole toolkit of methods to use.
It's like piecing together a puzzle, right? You've got all these different pieces of information, and work analysis helps you put them together to create a complete picture of the job.
Precisely. And just like a detective chooses the right tool for the job, each of these work analysis methods has its strengths and weaknesses. For instance, observing someone might be great for a job with lots of hands-on tasks, but not so useful for someone who's mostly strategizing or writing code.
So how do you know which method is best?
It often depends on the specific job or what you're hoping to learn. Sometimes a combination of methods works best, giving you a well-rounded view.
That makes sense. Chapter9.pdf also introduced some specific tools like the Position Analysis Questionnaire, or PAQ, and the Fleischmann Job Analysis Survey, or FJAAS. What's the deal with those?
These are classic tools for breaking down jobs into their core components. The PAQ, imagine a detailed survey for jobs, helps organizations pinpoint the exact skills needed, while the FJAS focuses on the abilities required to perform those skills.
It's like they're getting really granular with it.
Exactly. And that level of detail can be incredibly helpful, especially for complex jobs.
But what about jobs that are constantly changing, like in tech or software development? It seems like any analysis you do today might be outdated tomorrow.
That's a great point, and it brings us to the exciting world of strategic work analysis, or SWA. Instead of just analyzing existing jobs, SWA is about anticipating the skills needed for jobs that haven't even been invented yet.
Okay, now that sounds seriously next level. How does that even work?
It's about looking at trends, emerging technologies, and even global shifts to predict what the future of work might look like. Imagine trying to define the job of a virtual reality experience designer or a quantum computing ethicist a decade ago. Those jobs didn't even exist, but now they're in high demand.
So SWA is all about future-proofing your workforce.
Exactly. It's about being proactive, not reactive.
And this is where competency models come in, right? Those broader frameworks that define the core skills and traits valued across an entire organization.
Absolutely. Competency models help organizations align their talent with their long-term strategies. They provide a common language for discussing skills and development, which can be incredibly powerful.
It's like having a roadmap for success, not just for individual jobs, but for the entire company.
Precisely. It's about ensuring everyone is moving in the same direction with a shared understanding of what it takes to succeed.
This has been incredibly eye-opening. We've covered so much ground, from the basics of work analysis to the future-forward world of SWA and competency models.
It's a fascinating field that's constantly evolving, just like the workplace itself.
And it's something we can all benefit from understanding better. So the next time you're applying for a job, thinking about your career path, or even just trying to understand the changing world of work, remember the power of work analysis. It's not just about job descriptions, it's about unlocking potential, both for individuals and organizations.
Well said. It's about creating a more fulfilling and successful future of work for everyone.
Absolutely. Thanks for taking this deep dive with us. Until next time, keep exploring, keep learning, and keep asking what's next.